Hello, my friends. Welcome to Art to Go at OPC. We have a great project for you today, something anyone can do, and I think you're gonna really have some great results with it. It's our mason jar snowman lantern. He's a cute little guy, and when we're all done, we can actually use some little fairy lights to light him up, and you can use them as part of your holiday decor. So we're gonna kind of go step by step here. Again, it's not hard. Everything you need is in your kit. And what we're going to start with is our white paint. Now my jar is a little bit bigger than yours. I'm just showing you here what we're doing, but just squirt a little bit of paint out into your paper plate that's in your kit and take your foam brush, and we're going to start just brushing the white paint onto your mason jar. Your jar's already been cleaned for you, so you don't have to do that, but you're just gonna take your brush and work vertically up and down. Don't worry about maybe filling every little spot super opaque, because we're actually going to put a second coat on of a little bit creamier color, and it'll fill in any extra spaces. And actually, sometimes not having everything be perfectly covered really thick is good, because it'll look a little more distressed. In fact, if you want to distress later on, I'm going to show you how to do that too. So we're going to keep working around. It's probably a good idea for you to cover your surface of your table with either some newspaper, or if you have some butcher paper, maybe a plastic tablecloth, whatever. Just do that so that you don't ruin your table or get paint on it. Not that it won't come off, but so you're going to just continue around, as you can see, adding your white paint. I actually would do the rim and the bottom as well. Do your top of your rim at the top there. And when you start doing this, don't even wet your sponge or anything to begin with. The only time we're going to wet it is when we clean our brush in between to change colors. Because if you do that, sometimes the paint gets a little too soupy. Now, being on camera here, sometimes things aren't going to dry quite as quickly. I don't have the time right to do that, but I'm going to paint even the bottom of my jar. I just am picky. I mean, that's up to you. If you really don't want to, you probably don't have to, but and then touch up. Okay, now you're gonna have to let this dry in between coats. So I would say you probably wanna walk away for 10 minutes or so and then come back. But if you want to dry things a little bit quicker, you could use your hair dryer. So if you have one at home, you can do that. Okay, we're gonna pause for just a minute until our jar dries and then go on to our next step. Okay, so we're back for the next step of painting our mason jar. Actually, I used that hairdryer and the jar dried within probably less than 2 minutes. So if you put it on your high heat and you just go around, it's perfect. If you found that maybe you needed to touch up the bottom of your jar just a tiny bit more after you dried it with your hairdryer or air dried it, you can go ahead and do that. But right now, again, it doesn't have to be perfect because we are putting another coat of paint on it. And you actually want it to be not so opaque that your little lights aren't going to show through either. So I like that distressed look. Don't worry about so much perfection at this step. Okay, so then this is where you're going to clean your brush, because you don't want to mix up your paint colors. So you're going to take your little foam brush and put it in your cup of water. And then you have some paper towel in your kit. You want to kind of dry it off. Again, you don't want your paints to be soupy, so use any of the toweling and just get that foam brush fairly dry. And then you're going to take your vanilla paint, which the reason we did this is the snowman faces are a little bit more off-white, and rather than having the bright white of the jar, I thought that the colors kind of blended together a little bit more, just to add that little bit of touch of the vanilla cream and it ties in a little more with your jar. Be sure you shake your paints up a little bit ahead. And then this step, you're not going to totally coat the jar. We're just going to do a little bit more dabbing and light. And you're going to leave some of the white showing through. This coat's not meant to cover the entire surface of your jar. So you might, I mean, you can even experiment if you have, get a little bit of paint off on your paper or your surface that you're working on, and then just lightly add in some of the cream. Again, letting some of the white show through. So we're going to continue this throughout. Dab. And you're going to have some textural things on your jars. All the jars are different. Some say ball, some say cur, but that kind of adds to the, just cut that part out.
You're holding the jar way too close to your body.
Okay, all right.
Okay, that's better.
All right. So you're just going to continue. I'll move my paint over here a little bit. Just dabbing. I mean, you can kind of experiment. Maybe you want to have a little texture to it and just dab that way. If you feel you need to experiment at all on your surface or paper, you can do that too. Sometimes you get a little too much paint on your brush, but just, continue. So I think I'm just gonna, on this one, kind of do the front of my jar so that then we can continue working and you can see. Now you might want to decide at this point too, do you want the ball to be the front of your jar or the back? I mean, I kind of like it, but when you go to put buttons and embellishments on, you're going to have to work around that too. So that might be a decision you might want to make as you're working on it. But I'm going to go a little dabbing, a little pulling. Now this coat you don't have to do on the bottom of the jar, but I would do a little bit up along the top. If you missed any spots with your white, you can fill in with the vanilla. Along the top, because the top edge is actually going to be where you're closest to the snowman head, which will have that creamy effect. So now we have our second coat on. Again, it's important that we let this dry, either air dry or again using your hair dryer before we start to embellish, because your glue's not going to stick to anything that is wet. So I might even let this coat dry a little bit longer than your first one. Maybe just go do a little something, come back to your work area, and then we'll continue with the next step. So now we're back to the next step. Your jar is totally dry, and again, you probably want to avoid it maybe 15-20 minutes to be sure that everything is totally dry, that nothing's wet. Sometimes you get a little glop here and there, so just turn it around, kind of check it out, make sure it's how you want it. If there's anything at this point that you feel you need to add a little bit in an area, you can go back and do that. Now, this step is optional, but if you want your snowman to look a little bit more distressed, we did add a little piece of sandpaper in, and I don't know if any of you did the lavender mason jar we did a few months ago, but we showed you how to distress, and we're going to show the same thing here. You just do this very lightly to take off a little bit of the paint. Like let's say one area you got your vanilla a little bit heavier than what you would have liked to have had it. You can use your sandpaper to just distress a little bit. Again, this step is totally up to you. Sometimes it's kind of fun to do a little distressing up along the top of the jar because there's texture up in there, or maybe around the ball part, just so that it kind of brings that to life a little bit more, and you can see the letters, but just doing a tiny bit of that sometimes adds just a little bit of that rustic feel. But again, this step is something you can decide if you want to do. Okay, so when that's done, now we're ready for the fun part, embellishing your snowman and making him really come to life. And this is the part that's going to make him unique and individual and make yours a little bit different than someone else's. So we have 2 style heads that we have available. If there's one that you prefer over the other, you need to let us know when you order your kit. And they both look really cute. I can show you this one in here. You can see he's got a really cute little hat, and this one is just a little bit like simpler version. So you can pick whichever one you like the best, but you have to let us know that when you order. Okay, so right now we don't really have any heads on the jars. We're taking them off, and we're going to, the first thing I would do would be to put on your scarf. And this is probably a little bit longer than what you need, but we just kind of did that so you can make your own choice as far as how long you want it to be. So I would do a double knot. And kind of do it so that when you're tying, you want to be sure this has a right and a wrong side to the material, and you really don't want to see that wrong side, you know, like that. So as you're tying, you might need to adjust your knot a little bit so that and it'll fray a little bit, but you know what? That adds to the character. So don't worry about that. You might even want to fray your edges, which could be fun too, and it'll look even more rustic. So I'm going to use the ball as the front of my jar. Like I said, it's going to be a tiny bit harder when we adhere the buttons, but I kind of just like that look on mine. So you can choose whichever side you want to put your scarf off to, and you can see that we basically have a little scarf. And then depending on how long you want it, you can take scissors and angle it or cut it straight. You could do a little V, whichever you want to do. Or if you want to just cut it straight across and do some fraying, that could look really cute too. In your kit, you have all kinds of fun little things to add. We have little raffia stars and pine cones and little berries. And again, you can snip these to whatever length that you want. Now on the sample, we just did a simple little star. Another thing you can do here too is we have some raffia, and we put in a bunch because if you find another place you want to add some, you can. So I like the look of it just to add, again, that little bit of a more rustic feel. And again, double knotting everything. Try to do this so maybe you can see it a little bit better. You could tie it in a bow. You could do several pieces and just leave it frayed looking. The one thing I didn't have here are scissors, so I'm not going to trim mine right now, but you probably need to just trim these all off a little bit. It's hard because I'm looking from a different direction than what I'm showing you. Okay, so now we have the scarf, we have a little raffia, and I'm getting a little pair of scissors here so that I can trim my things off so that it's not quite so long. And I think I'm gonna cut mine on an angle, but again, that might look more bow-like, but you can do whatever you want. And then we have your scarf on there. So then the next step, you're going to take the E6000 glue that is in your kit. It's just a little container of it, but it's enough to do what you will need to do here. rather than open an extra one, I'm gonna use my larger one that I already have open here. And laying your jar, I'm gonna kind of see where I want it to go here. I think I'm gonna actually pull this back in that direction, where I'm gonna put a little star. Now, if you'd rather, you could put a pine cone there. You could put a star and a little piece of the berry. I'm gonna start with a star. And you just take a little bit of your glue and you can put some on the star, some in the spot you want it to go on, and then you are going to press and hold. Now, the E6000 glue does take probably 10-15 minutes to dry. Don't use a lot of it, you just need a little bit, but it's a longer lasting glue than using a glue gun. If you prefer and you have a glue gun at home and you want to do this that way, for all the embellishments, you could use a glue gun as well. But the E6000 will give you a little bit longer lasting hold. So that's why I like to use it. You can kind of see here too, like how all the distressing adds to the jar as I'm really looking closely at it. Now at this point, if let's say you wanted to add a little piece of berry, you could even put the berry within your knot there if you want, and you wouldn't have to use the glue. But I think I'm going to use a little glue here. Again, pressing and holding. And it just is going to take a little patience to let your glue dry. So there are steps to this. Like again, it's not difficult, but there are some steps where you have to pause a little bit and then go on. So at this point, you know, I kind of just like the little berry and the star. You can bend your berries and see, it's still a little wet. So I'm thinking maybe we should pause for a few minutes while this dries. My glue is starting to dry, so I am going to lay my jar flat like this. Maybe I'll move my little head out of here. And we're going to take some of the buttons that we put in your kit. Now again, if you have something at home you'd rather do, maybe you have some little stars or something, star buttons, or you have just something special in your button bag or whatever, your needle art kit. You can do whatever you want. But we have included some little black and red buttons. And what I thought's kind of cute is to put the black, and then you can just put the red inside of the black buttons. But if you would prefer just to use the red buttons or just to use the black buttons, it's totally up to you. We want all of these to be as unique and individual as you. So you're going to take your E6000 glue, put a little dab, and place them. Now again, if you are putting it over that ball, you're just probably gonna have to let things dry a little bit longer, because the texture of that just might raise things up a little bit and take it a little bit longer to dry. So I like seeing the ball jar or Kerr or Mason or whatever on the front, because I just think it adds uniqueness and character. So we are going to just put this down. The E6000 glue dries clear, so if you get a little on the edge or something, you really don't have to worry too much about it. The nice thing about your glue that you're getting in your kit is it's just a little tiny one, and it's going to be nicer when you're putting on like the little buttons and that. Mine's kind of big. It's almost like I need a little toothpick or something to spread it on. And then you can just put the red ones in between. And it's up to you. They all have different kinds of, like this one has 4 holes in the button, so I think I'll put that one in the middle. So it's a little different from the top and the bottom one, but and again, I can see a tiny bit of glue along the edges, but that will all dry clear in the end. Okay, so I have to leave it right now laying flat just because if I start to pick it up, things are gonna shift or move. So at this point, you would just want to let your buttons dry and then you can go on to the next step. So I'm gonna put this off to the side and then I'm going to show you on your little head, there already are some berries and little greens, and this guy actually has already a star and everything on it, but you can still add something to it if you want. Maybe on this one you want to add a couple more berries, and again you can cut them to whatever length you want. On this guy, maybe you want to add a few more berries or a little pine cone. Those are all in your kit, and again you will use the E6000 glue just to adhere them. Okay, so at this point everything's kind of drying, okay? And once your things have dried, and I'd probably walk away at this point for like maybe an hour or so and just let the E6000 glue really dry up. And then you're ready to complete your little snowman lantern. So here we are, everything's dry, okay? And now we are ready to assemble him and get him ready to display so that you can enjoy him in your home this Christmas season. So everyone's getting a little string of fairy lights. You will find that there is a little tab in there because you're probably going to start turning it on and going, they don't work. So you're just going to pull that out, okay? And then unwind your fairy strings. No, watch, mine aren't going to unwind really well. But anyway, then you're going to just do your little tab so that they light up. And you're gonna insert them in. Now, once you unwind them and they're all over, you'll see glow all up through the top of your jar. And then you're ready to put your little guy. We'll use the one where we already have his little pine cone in there. And all you do is just set him inside and voila, he's ready to display. The reason we don't glue these down is, again, so that you can turn your fairy lights on and off, okay? These are just ones that are hand. They don't have a timer or anything on them. So I think once you're ready to turn them off at night, you just tip it over, take your fairy lights off, turn it off, and you're ready to go. And again, if you'd rather have this guy, we can do that as well too. And because they have the little scarf and everything already on it, just push that in and it kind of just holds them in your jar. And they're just so cute. Now, how am I gonna use this? There's lots of fun things you can do with these. You could use him as a centerpiece, actually. And you could put him on a charger. I'm gonna kind of move away some of my things here. Put my drying guy there. So let's say you need a little centerpiece for your table. You could take a charger, could be any color, the silver, gold, whatever. I kind of liked the red with the red on the scarf, and just place them in the center of the charger. Maybe you have some different little snowflake ornaments that you could just scatter about. Look through some, you know, a lot of us have so many ornaments we don't know what to do with. You could even take like little gold balls or silver balls, say you have, you know, clear balls, whatever, and just do a few of them around and add that. Or what you could do is, if you like the more rustic look, grab some pine cones and just kind of scatter those around. I can't really see what he looks like from that other direction, but I mean, you could do a combination of things, but it'd be a great little centerpiece for your table. You can also, if you have wood rounds at all, I know these are really popular nowadays. This is a small one, but you could just hoist them up on here, add a little pine cone, and isn't that cute? He'd be great as a centerpiece. You can put him on your mantle, wherever you just need a little glow. He'd even be cute in your bath or as a little nightlight or whatever. So the sky's the limit. Do what you can. Once you've completed your guy, just do what you have, use some things you have around your home so that you can really enjoy them this Christmas season. Thank you for joining us on Art to Go. I hope you have lots of fun making this. If you have any questions, certainly don't hesitate to call us.